Hello, everybody. This is Debby Enoe at an earlier time because I have an educator, as I post in the link earlier on, who is coming from Japan. And as a
Yay.
result of that, I have to be flexible because, after all, I'm looking at female educators roundtable and the challenges and triumphs. So flexibility is necessary. Hence the reason why we're coming over much earlier than the normal time in order to accommodate my educator. And as educators, we have to be flexible. That's in our nature and that's in the job we do. Hence the connection. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello,
Thank you
hello.
for accepting the offer to come online. Introduce yourself and tell
Hi,
us
everyone.
what.
My name is Natalie Wright Njotu. I'm a speech language pathologist here in Okinawa, Japan, and I've been over here for 10 years.
Okay, thank you. Right. Can you tell us how, especially now that you're actually teaching online, what are some of the challenges, especially with some of the students you have whose communication is minimal? So, what are the challenges?
The challenges. So, I work with a range of students with all different disabilities, and I thought I turned that off, excuse me, all different disabilities. And so, some are not able to engage with an online platform, and others, maybe parents are working and they don't have access. And just some of the same challenges that we've all experienced. So yeah, nothing out of the ordinary, I think, in that terms. It's just, you know, more of the same, more of the same
Okay,
challenges that
okay.
we've all been facing.
Okay, so how do you negotiate that? How do you connect with the student online, bearing in mind that you have to connect with them online? How you do that?
Collaboration,
Mm.
collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. And that's a fun word that we throw around, and it sounds good and we should say it, but it really is imperative in, at this time. So if the child spends more time with their special education teacher, that's kind of the person I'm going to go to first to say, hey, where are you? Because they talk to the parents a lot more than we do. As speech language pathologists, they'll see them mostly every day. We may not see them until the IEP meeting, the parents. So the teacher who services the child the most is your first line of defense. If they don't have something as involved with that, then you have the classroom teachers. And then you say, hey, how are they doing? What's going on? You kind of investigate, because as their issues become more complex, we become, we kind of fade further into the background in terms of being a related service, not just the case manager. And so, in collaboration with the parent, hi, Mrs. So and so, thinking about you. Here's a fun activity that I created, for Susie Q. Johnny Q may like it too, those kinds of things. I kept any kind of general resources on how to talk to kids about COVID-19 that I found on my own, or that was disseminated. I pass that on. I'm all about the information and disseminating information and giving people the tools to to be able to call upon.
So how do you get the parent? Because it seems like, for your job to be done effectively, you need the connection and the communication with the parents a lot more than somebody like me, who most of my students, they do not have they do not have communication needs. So as a result of that, the parents are not even very active anyway. So
Exactly.
how
And
active
that
are your parents?
it really depend, depended, I guess, because we're on summer break now. It really depended. Everybody had, different reasons why they could not engage. Some of the reasons I still don't know to this day why they couldn't engage, but I was there. I was available. via email, via messaging. And what I did, I tapped into the parents who were there, so, parents that showed up, I showed up, parents who need to reschedule, we rescheduled, and just continued, hey, just sending an email. Some parents, I didn't even get a chance to meet with them at all, or the students at all during our time that we were distance learning. However, we communicated, again, they're doing this, they're doing that. Oh, wow, they got that award. That's wonderful. So just constant communication with the parents, even if the child didn't engage in the actual platform. Yeah. I made special materials for the child. Sometimes I don't know if it landed or not, but I said, you know what? Based on that child's goals, I think they need XYZ. So I'm going to make them XYZ. And that's when I would go into my resources and find things and make videos similar to this and email it out just so they could see my face. And again, the parents had a tool.
So how many children do you look after?
My caseload is about 50 to 60 students.
Okay, how many of that amount came on the online platform?
I would say about half of them were active.
Okay.
And then maybe another quarter just information, like maybe we just spoke via email, just how are you doing, what's going, just checking in.
Okay. So how often those that actually came onto the online platform, how often did you see them?
I tried to keep it as much as similar to their IEP, their individualized educational plans, or some people call them programs. I kept it as close to the IEP as possible. So if they were seen twice a week, I would see them 180 minutes per month is kind of like the standard in our field. And that would break down to twice a week for 30 minutes. And then we have a different model that we use, which I won't go into right now, but it really depended. So as close to the IEP as possible. If that I have parents who were showing up all the time, that's great. We, the more the merrier. We just came on, I just had them come on. But maybe some kids only came to the therapy room, or I went to see them in their classrooms once a week. We kept that same minutes.
Okay. And so another question. So the resources you made for the children was you really differentiated, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is what we do, definitely, yes. So whether it's taking materials that I already own, I already owned a lot of PDF books that I bought years ago. So for me, setting up, it was just a matter of, like maybe screenshotting the pictures that I wanted to show when we used Google platform, and having that ready. I created a lot of interactive board games for them, just what I would do if we were sitting across from each other in the therapy room. I try to do that. I try to make it as engaging as possible. I created visual schedules, meaning first we're going to sit, first we're going to look at Miss Wright, and then I kind of went through that if the child needed that. I loved giving them the opportunity to do show and tell, because it's something that we wouldn't get a chance to do in the actual therapy room, because somebody would have forgotten their toy and we'd have to go all the way back. We didn't have all that, they had something with them right there. And parents are very supportive also too, with the younger ones especially. And sometimes even with older students, after we wrapped up, I loved being able to say, hey, can you stay after the session? And we talked about it. Like, what did you think about XYZ? What do you need? So it was wonderful to be able to give that direct feedback to the parent, and for the parent to kind of give me, oh, she's not feeling well because I told her she couldn't have a cookie. Something like that, and just get immediate feedback. Yeah, so that was nice.
Okay. Another thing is, when you actually think in terms of, you say you differentiated, what was the results in terms of, I know when we differentiate in terms of our whole class, you get far better results. from the students. So in relationship to the online platform, what was the result you were getting?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, I loved it in the sense that I just got to focus on what I love, and that's providing therapy to my students. No fire drills, no extra activities. I just got to do. So my progress reports were really long because I got just great data for the ones that showed up,
Right.
and so I loved that, and I got parent input. So for the ones that were there, we worked hard, and it was fun. So obviously we wouldn't be able to do that, if everybody had come on, but for the time, I used what I had, and I was really able to get into a routine, and differentiate instructions, and create flexible grouping folders in a platform that only the students could access. So I would say, for example, I would say, okay, Susie Q, you are in group 1, so and so you're in group 2, and so nobody knew, even if they went into the folder on their Google Drive, they didn't know who was who because there were no names or anything.
Okay.
So that was fun, and that was really fun. So I was able to just click and drag and drop things, and papers didn't get lost. So I'm techie that way. I really enjoyed those aspects of it, and just getting some really good isolated baseline data on some of my kids. But that's some of them. Not everybody could be reached that way. Not everybody was the platform successful for. I could not reach. I shouldn't say I could not reach, but I could not get great data on that form because it took us a long time to get set up and focused, and I wasn't there to take distracting items away from them. I wasn't able to I couldn't redirect them by like maybe tapping on the table or putting my hand in a certain way. It just didn't have the same effect for some of my students.
Yeah. What's the age group of children do you have?
I serviced pre-K through 5th grade.
Okay, what age is that?
Oh, that's okay. So that here would be like 3 years, around 3 years of age to about 11 years of age, depending, give or take.
Okay. How did you find it in relationship to the resources? I understand that you're differentiating, so it makes it easier in terms of outcome, etc. But how is it in terms of connecting with a 3-year-old, and what is the time span you actually have in order to see progress?
Connecting with the 3-year-old, it was all fun and games when my 3-year-old was at daycare. So at one point we had switched to distance learning, and I was doing it without my 3-year-old because he was at daycare, and then that switched, and trying to engage a 3-year-old on screen, but while a 3-year-old is pulling on you over here, it was all fun and games. It really depended, and for the most part, it was just not a successful platform for my 3-year-olds. But that gave us opportunities to model for our parents, talk to our parents, and not preach, to them, but just say, how's it doing? What have you tried? Have you tried this? What is he really into? Okay, and just listen to them. Listen to them in probably in ways that we wouldn't normally get a chance to do so.
So how, in terms of the 3-year-old, how interactive what the parents want? And secondly, which means that the parents need to be online with the child, right?
Yes. Oh, yes, definitely. Yes, I think probably all the way up, maybe the 4th and 5th graders, depending on what they were working on. But I definitely, for everybody, got definitely more compliance with parents close by. They just, it's interesting. They need that closeness at that age of somebody to, redirect them. And most of our 3-year-olds, like my own, they weren't having it.
Yeah, yeah.
They were not having it. I am not Pete the Cat. I am not Peppa Pig. They could care less. So yes, we took that time to just make sure that we were supporting the parents emotionally as much as possible, and just giving them a chance to ask questions and just simply be, sometimes was what they needed, I think.
The other thing is how involved, because yesterday I had someone on the platform and, as much as she's saying it was nice to have parental involvement, she said the parents were too involved. So how did you find your parents?
My parents were great. And most of my kids I already had a rapport with. Okay. And they were surprised that Miss Wright was the same in front of mommy as she was without mommy there. So things they could get away with mommy, they still couldn't get away with me. Yeah. And it went for my own 3-year-old as well too. So yeah, so and I'm skilled at redirecting parents if I need to, and but working collaboratively. I wouldn't even say redirecting. I would redirect the child, but I would work collaboratively with the parent. Like, Mom, I know he knows the answer, or I know that something is there, but I want him to say it. And and so my parents were really great though. I did not have any parent that was too involved, and if I wanted them to give the child more of an opportunity, I simply said so. And yeah, but it's what we do. So I think that's our niche. Like, we really have to say, hey Mom, nope, I need you to stop. Dad, coming in a second. Okay, here's what I need you to do. So we're that's just part of what we do, how we practice anyway.
Right. Yeah, but when you're in the physical classroom, the parents are not around, are they? It's just,
Usually in a school setting, no, but in private practice, maybe. Okay. And you may work with the same group, groups of kids in private practice. I've worked with 3-year-olds in private practice, and yes, parents and grandparents are all in the room with you as well. So yes, it's definitely, as a speech therapist, speech language pathologist, we're accustomed to navigating that space, interjecting, advocating for the student, listening to the parents, because at the end of the day, what works with them? If we're trying to correct a speech pattern, but it's a cutesy way that the family uses, okay, have it. However, let's make sure that the child knows, if he so chooses, how to say that particular word that you guys purposely mispronounce at home, which is fine. We all do it. Just make sure he has the tools to know to do it, and empowering them. No, it's not your fault. Just soothing them. I think that way too. I think it's our duty to make sure that they know it's not your fault. But we're here to help you and support you and help you navigate this opportunity, this experience that you're going through. And we're not in their shoes, so we have to really shut up and listen to them, and just really listen to what they're saying and take cues from them that way.
Right. Thank you. So how do you support the educators? Because you also say you support educators. So how do you support the educator? An educator who have a 3-year-old in the class whose verbal communication is challenging. How do you support that?
Oh yeah, when we were previously talking, I was talking about the platform I started for Black educational resources, and that's my Instagram account. And that part is to give a spotlight to people who create digital tools, ebooks and print tools, so that they may be able to share them in the classrooms. Because I know when I'm looking for books for my son, I can't always find books for my son. When other parents are looking for books about what's going on, they may not be able to find books that are simply written that talk to the needs of a special needs child. So that books that you find on the market may not have that. They're too wordy, they're too complex, And we really need to break it down. And there's not a lot of places where people can go for that. And that's why I started that, because in the group, it's, there are lots of, OTs and PTs and SLPs, and we know how to simplify the text, simplify and produce materials that can teach that. In terms of in the classroom, physically, I do the same thing, just educate the teachers, and listen, because they have a different rapport with the students. We have similar goals, but I like to I call it the auntie approach, to doing things. Your teachers told you this, your mom has told you this, everybody's told you this. Mm-hmm. Let me see if I can breathe in with a brand new toy that you've never seen before and tell you the exact same thing in a different way. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it's really collaboration with your team. As a speech language pathologist in a school, I work on a team of at least 15 to 20 people, and we all have a piece of the pie, a piece of the key to trying to understand the kid. And it's not about fixing the kid, it's understanding him a little bit better until they are able to communicate, hopefully verbally, but if not, non-verbally, what's going on with them.
Right. So thank you. So it's a matter of equipping them with the tools in order to progress forward. So exactly. Is it a situation where you equip the teachers with the tool, or, what is it? Is it equipping the teacher with the tool in order to help the child?
It's a two-way street, because we're both working off of a plan. Before we provide any services to a child, we've sat down at a table with the parent and we've come up with goals. We've come up with an individual educational plan, an IEP for this child. And so now it's a matter of how do we address those goals? And it's going to look different for every child, every situation, every classroom. And it's really like, hey, you know what? I wasn't able to get to this in our classroom setting. Could you work on this with Johnny? Sure, let's work on it with Johnny. So it's just about a continued collaboration between the two, just to see, are we on the right track?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Another thing is, sorry, how does some of the parents, you see, I understand that you get the parents' involvement, etc. But parents who, as we know, not every parent want to be actively involved or are actively involved. How do you support a child when you know that you need the input of the parents, but the parents is not coming on board? I'm asking you two questions here. How you try to get the parents involved so that the parents realize that how essential is it for he or she to be part of this relationship?
Fortunately for us, that's part of the IEP process, the special education process. We are legally mandated to get parent involvement. So at the very least, once a year, when we do an annual review meeting with a child who's already on an IEP, we get parent involvement. At least every 3 years, we get new assessments for the student. And again, we get parent involvement. Mm-hmm. We're also sending home quarterly progress report. So this is how, Johnny, again, I'm just going to use this fictitious Johnny here. Johnny and Susie, those are my fictitious people. This is how they performed this quarter. So that's there. Now, what do I, Natalie, do to get parent involvement? Usually, I'll start the year off with, hi, I'm your child's SLP. Howdy do. And they'll, some parents will respond, some parents won't, okay? Then I'll say, I'm doing this really cool activity. Can so-and-so have so-and-so? And I send it out to my parents again. And then I get a lot more response to that, you know, when we're doing a fun activity, like, oh yes, can I bring you something? It is amazing. I'm like, no, I just wanted to know if we could participate in this, you know, this hot chocolate activity or something that we're doing. And then right before an IEP meeting of sorts, maybe a week or so before, I try to say, I sent out a questionnaire, or I may call the parent. It really depends on my relationship with my parents. Because, you know, unlike a classroom teacher, I may see my kid year after year after year. I may see them for their whole duration of elementary school. My rule of thumb, if we're making progress, I'm keeping them. If we've stagnated, then maybe somebody else has a different way of approaching their needs. And so I'll send out a questionnaire that says, hey, you know, this is what do you what do you want for your child? How can the school help? You know, something like that. And they may say, nope, nothing. And then we also send home a draft of the goals. So these are the goals I'm proposing. You know, what do you think about that? So we have, and then at the actual meeting, then we have written documentation in the IEP and in the official minutes of the meeting that yes, we got the parents' input, and the parents' input maybe I had nothing to say, and that's okay. You know, sometimes it's okay. Some parents are just going to be quiet. They're not going to talk to you until they really get to know you, and they may say something like, hey, Susie said she really liked XYZ activity that you did with her. And that means a lot, you know, because that may be the only thing that they've ever said to you. Ever. And that's okay too. So legally, we have steps that we need to take to make sure that parents' input is a part of the whole process, from I think there may be a problem with my child to, yep, we've diagnosed, you know, so-and-so, and as a team, we think, yep, there's a problem, all the way through to getting the services.
Okay, thank you. You said that goals are set up for this child. Who actually make these goals? Who actually devise these goals? Who come up with these goals for this child?
That's a great question. So it really depends on the disorder that we're treating. If it's just a speech, let's just say they don't have any other issues, they're only working on R. So an assessment is given. We look to see, you know, what areas they need to work on, which ones are not developmentally appropriate. And if it's R, we said, okay, let's see, can they work on ER, OR, IR, you know, the different variations of R. And we take the one that they can say the easiest, the ones that they're most stimulable for. And then we come up with a goal for that, for the next year.
Okay.
For the next year, we say that, you know, again, Johnny's going to work on XYZ, and by next year, this time, he should be able to do that.
Okay.
And then there's that goal, and then we send it out to the team. Again, no one person is coming up with the goal. Obviously, if it's my area, my discipline, I'm going to draft that goal, but my administrators are going to give some input. If appropriate, the parent is going to give an input. They may say, hey, I really need him to say grandma's name. Okay, then grandma's name is going to go on that IEP, because that is a word that is very important to the family and for the child to be able to say. So it's really, no one is acting alone. Even if the child ends up being on my caseload, I'm still a part of a larger team, including my counselors, my psychologists, you know, that kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you. So how often that goal is reviewed?
Once a year.
Okay. So what happened in between? So how would you know in terms of progress?
That's where the progress reports come into play.
Okay.
And another way, going back to the other question, another way I'll get parent involvement, I believe if the child does something remarkable, or they, you know, whether or not it's directly tied to their IEP or not, I send the parent, you know, a little email and say, hey, oh my gosh, you never believe what, you know, what your child did today, or, you know, just those little things.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Okay. That's fantastic. It's interesting though in terms of how you actually connect with the children online, especially when communication is so challenging. You know, as you rightly say, some of them you were able to connect with and others you didn't. It's like us, you know, other educators that are teaching online anyway, you do not, very few educators that have 100% of the students. You know, if you get 50%, that is a bonus, because 50% of whatever your amount is, that's very good. Because as we know, in terms of engaging online, it's even the student that has nothing cognitively wrong with them or verbally wrong with them, they are not engaging. You see, that's the other thing. So in terms of the percentage you have is very good. Another question is, are they all okay to put the camera on? What are the issues in relationship to them? You know, these children having the camera on and to see you. How are you, you know, what's the issue with that?
With that, again, the ones that came, we worked, we had fun. I tried to make it as engaging as possible. You know, just supporting and cheerleading the parents the whole way, because they were really moving mountains to sometimes attend these sessions. Some parents would forget. And, you know, in the grand scheme of things, you know, we want to check in with people. You know, at the end of the day, I'm a goal-oriented, you know, let's get that data, get the data. But at the end of the day, if you didn't make it because you forgot, we'll try again. You know, of course you want them to be right there, but I wasn't right there, you know, every day. Sometimes I had cameras, sometimes I had to deal with myself, you know, something. And we're like, okay, you know what? We're going to reschedule. And that was the reality of it. You know, we had to reschedule because my child was demanding my attention at that moment, and we were not going to get any peace until he got what he needed, and I had to back down. and he won those days, or you know, or for that moment. And for the parents, I can't really speak to the parents who didn't show up. I don't know why, and I hope, you know, I hope, you know, going forward, whatever it is, you know, that those issues can be resolved. I can only speak to the ones who were there. And for the ones who were there, we had fun, we worked. And, you know, I would, you know, send parents emails like, okay, let's try this, let's try that. Before we decided upon a platform as an organization, hey, try that platform. Did that work? No, you didn't like that? Okay, I'm gonna send you an email to the school, you know, the child's school email account. Could you log in? No, that didn't work. Okay, cool. You know, and so we just tried it, and they would give me feedback, and I would just ask. I did not pretend to be the expert in any of this. I was learning alongside of them. But you know, we eventually got into a groove, and I think it was a successful, in terms of the feedback I got from my parents, it was successful because, you know, it was nice, you know, for them to see, you know, some of the struggles I was having with my 3-year-old. And yes. I know there are other SLPs that I follow, and I see, you know, their struggles with their 3-year-olds during COVID. And so it's really nice. You know, you want a nice, perfect little, you know, bubble, but that's not what we're getting right now. This is reality. Mm-hmm. And we laughed and we talked, and I was available. I just tried to make myself as available to them and answer their questions as openly and honestly and transparently as I could.
Right. Thank you. It's, you know, the interesting thing about it is, as we all know, as female educators with family, especially with young children, we have to negotiate with the child, negotiate with the platform, negotiate with our student. And sometimes this all negotiation doesn't work, because times you go on there, and when you start, that's the time the child wants to have your attention. So the challenge is great, being a parent and also being an educator, because there's sometimes you have to not only teach other people's children online. You also have to teach your child online or support your child online. So it's been a challenge, as I keep on saying. My 14-year-old, it's like it's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
This one, I thought to myself, okay, we have to go back and finish off some work, which I gave him earlier in the week. And he said to me, it's been done. And I've checked it and it haven't been done. And it's a constant challenge because being on the online platform, the way we have to prepare lessons are far more in detail than we would
Mm-hmm.
normally do when we're in the classroom, because you're not able to see the body language as in detail as you would in the classroom. So it's a hit and miss, and it's a real challenge.
Yes,
But on the other
definitely.
hand, it's a positive challenge because you know what works and what doesn't work.
Yes, yes. And I just, kudos to my parents, and the kids, the ones that were there every day, the ones that came once, the ones that didn't quite make it. Everybody has their challenges, and they're still dealing with stuff stateside. Some people just moved um, during the middle of it as we were shutting down. So it's just important to be respectful and supportive. And, we don't have a right to demand to know what's going on with them, but to create a space for them to share if they so choose to. And I liked it because I was able to connect more with the parents that did show up. I was able to, kind of be in their home, kind of see what's important to them, and the kids don't have, I don't know, we just don't give children the chance, especially, you know, in a school-based setting with so many kids on a caseload. They don't, everybody doesn't have the same amount of opportunity, but I liked some of the things I really liked about it was just getting to know the kids, like what are their strengths, because you ask them, and when they're little, they don't know, but if you have a parent there to say, hey, show her how you just did this math problem on your own, or those kinds of things. It was fun. I really liked that. I got to see all the stuffed animals, and we got to work on their sounds while they were showing me those stuffed animals. So I definitely liked those aspects of connecting with my kids in a different way, in a deeper way, and my parents as well. And I liked the challenge of coming up with creative lesson plans for my kids, and their families as well.
Yeah, it had to be creative. We have to be creative and innovative on the platform, because from the classroom, the physical classroom doesn't work on the online platform. So it's like scrapping it and building something new, because as we see, it doesn't work.
And I hope I'm not painting it in rose-colored lenses, because I mean there were just days where the computer just said nope.
Exactly. I've had a lot of those. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and I felt like everybody around me, around the child, everybody was online doing their work at that time, or on Netflix or whatever. The lines were way down, and the
Yeah.
computer would just freeze. And then, but what I did is I had my digital things. I even had my TV back here that I would mirror my iPad to, and we did some of those things. So in terms of planning, once we got going, it was just trial and error. But once we kind of got into a groove, I, it was the biggest challenge for me was moving away from my tangible things. So with my younger kids, we use toys, we use cars, we use dolls, we use just anything that can engage them. For my son, that meant, ooh wee, more toys for me to play with. Stop sharing my toys with people. So I was wrestling with him with some of the toys at some point. But then I had things online. I had things projected behind me. Then I just had cards, and then sometimes it was too distracting. I felt to hold up cards. Oh, mom, can you grab something? And so
Yeah.
I put my parents to work, Mom, could you go grab his favorite Lego back there? Bring it. And then if I froze, I would have the parent become the speech therapist, And when I was taking my data, I would train my parents to be able to listen for some of the things that I was listening for. So when I took my data, I would say, I didn't hear that. And if the parent didn't hear it either, then we didn't count it. But if I said, I thought I heard a D, she's like, oh no, she said a B. If, we've been doing this for a while, so I knew the parent knew the difference between a D and a B when they're listening and looking for it, for example, then we counted it, so the data really was strong. If it, if we didn't get it, we didn't get it. So that's how we addressed connectivity issues. Once we were getting the data, the parents knew what to listen for. I taught them about tongue placement. Is the child's tongue outside the mouth? If they're saying the S, for example, and so she goes, oh, I didn't, so it was nice to kind of hear the parents begin to use some of the same language that we use in the therapy room as well.
That's good. That's what you call active parents involvement.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you have this situation where parents trying to say it for the children?
Oh, yes. Mostly for my language students who struggled with language, getting their words out like I'm doing right now, getting their thoughts out, understanding language. Yes, sometimes.
So what do you do in a situation like that?
Coaching with a parent either before or after.
Okay.
And just, saying, suggesting little things like, Mom, can we give him a few more seconds to get his thoughts out? Because depending on what we're dealing with, if we're dealing with something that's more sensitive, if it's, for example, fluency disorder, stuttering, stammering in the UK and the Caribbean, you need to give children more time to get their thoughts out. And some kids were just like, Mom's gonna talk for me, and they just kind of hung back. And so sharing with the parent, yeah, I know that he knows it, or, just kind of coaching them that way. But it was just about, parent education and listening to parent insights and just, again, that collaboration, like being able to work with that parent, even if they were jumping in too much, we were able to shape it into something useful for the child.
Okay. Thank you. Right. What 3 tips would you actually give to an educator who's got the child in her class that has communication challenges, or any other challenge for that matter?
Is the child already on an IEP?
No.
But
it's a situation where, the educator realized that in terms of learning disability, there's some mild aspect there. So, what would you?
Immediately reach out to your SLP.
Okay.
Or a special education teacher, or the school psychologist, or even the counselor. Reach out to anybody on that special education team. Lots of different schools have different names and acronyms for that team, but it's the team comprised of administrators, SLPs, learning impaired teachers, the school nurse, etc. A multidisciplinary team. Reach out, say you have a concern. Also, before you tell anybody you have a concern, talk to the parents. Talk to the parents. If a teacher is concerned that a child in her class has a concern, she's going to have the data. She's going to compare it to her peers, and she's going to want to know, does the child have a problem? Now, she's going to want the SLP to come in right now, but we're like, no, let's look. Yes, sorry, I shouldn't say no. We're happy to come in. However, there are more steps that need to be taken. And the first step is tell the parent. Because you don't want to go through this whole process and then the SLP is the first person to tell the parent, Johnny has an issue, they've never heard that before. Tell the parent, because that rapport between the parent and the classroom teacher is very special. You know, they're like the first line of defense. Reach out to the SLPs. Reach out, because there may be, if they're young and they're kinder, they all have speech problems. they all have, you know, sitting down problems. They all are squirmy, you know. That's what 3 and 5 year olds, you know, 3 to 5 year olds do. So definitely want to reach out. You want to rule out hearing and vision concerns. That's a big one. Just rule that out. Rule out hearing and vision concerns. But, you know, just reach out and continue to talk and but also to be prepared. As a educator, it's not somebody else's responsibility to fix it. It's not just the speech person's problem to fix it. You're not the speech, you know, the speech teachers, what they'll say in the schools. It's not the SLP's responsibility alone, sole responsibility to fix the kid. We need to know what you see, because even a little problem is not significant enough to be entered into special education. We need to know that the problem you are seeing is so significant. The child is performing, you know, well beneath their peers, so that they must now be labeled, maybe only for short term, but maybe for the duration of their academic career, as special needs. We have to think about that and advocate, you know, investigate, talk to parents, you know, have something, not just come look at this. You know, because we have extraordinary caseloads. You know, we have, our numbers are huge in the school settings. You know, mine were 60. I've heard of others, 70, 80, 90 stateside. Yeah, so to, you know, know that there's never a problem for us to come and support. However, we want to know what else has been done, who else has been contacted, what are you seeing?
Okay, thank you very much. Right, basically today we looked at children that has various needs and how the educating sector is supporting that, and how online it is very challenging to actually support the children online, as every other sectors we've been looking at, because the online platform can be quite challenging. As much as fantastic, we've learned a lot, can be quite challenging. And as you know, we now have to find different ways of negotiating the platform and finding different ways of ensuring that we actually give the children the necessary education they need. However, as we also know, when we go back to the physical classroom, a lot of things that we have been teaching them online, we have to go back, we have to revisit it. Because it is, I'm seeing Natalie agreeing with me there, because it's very true. As much as we have taught them online, we're not too sure how much of the information they actually have been able to store in the memory. So we have to check that, because as we,
I'm sorry, you had asked me for the 3 tips, and I don't want to forget those. My 3 tips? Yeah, so you said, I would say collaborate with parents. Collaborate with their teachers and whoever else services them, and create space for the child and or the parent to share. And I think it's extremely imperative, you know, during this online platform that we've all been using and moving forward, even if we are in brick and mortar schools again, coming up in the fall, that space to really connect and outside of the strict parameters of IEP, or, you know, these are the goals, these are the standards. We really need to connect with, with individuals, not just, bodies in your classroom or, on your screens, but actual, the whole person. So yeah, those are my 3 tips. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. No, that's fine. So therefore, are we saying that we need to look at it on a holistic basis?
Yes, definitely.
Right. That I find quite important as well. And especially now whenever we go back into the physical classroom, we would also need to address the emotional, psychological aspect of the child before going forward, because there's so many challenges there in terms of, are they able to intellectually understand what we're going to be teaching them, especially coming out of a very unusual situation. It doesn't matter if the children or the child enjoy being at home. The child didn't see it as a challenge. There would still be aspects to address in relationship to the psychological and the emotional, the emotional unusualness of the whole situation. Because it's a lot. They have missed their friends. They have missed that interaction, although still loving staying at home. But that interaction with the friends and the exchange, it's a challenge.
Yeah. And just loving those parents, just loving, just loving the parents. And I think if you love the parents too, no matter what, just creating that. How are you doing? What's going on?
Yeah.
How's it been for you? And I got so many parents just to open up. Parents that I've never spoken to before, or since, just checking in with them.
Yeah. It is very, very important, because I personally, and I keep on repeating this in all my sessions, I personally feel that the most important factor for me in this child is the emotional and psychological well-being of the child. That is paramount important for me than any intellectual situation, because I do feel that intellectually the child would be able to catch up. However, in relation to psychologically and emotionally, there is no catching up. Those are the factors we must deal with when we actually go back into the classroom, when we actually go back as a whole group, whether or not it is a hybrid setup or we go back online. That is an area needs addressing, because there'll be a lot of underlying factor that we may not be able to identify, because children have a fantastic way of masking the psychological and emotional impact. So as educators, we need to start going deep. So we'll all be psychologists and therapists when we go back. Yes, Natalie.
How best do you recommend that we do that? What are some strategies?
Well, one of the things putting me on the spot. One of the things I personally feel we need to do, we need to allow them to talk and encourage them to talk as much as possible. And when they're talking, we need to start picking up what they're saying and allowing them to expand on it if they want to. Because communication for these children, the most important factor. Even the children who do not communicate quite readily, we need to find a way of allowing them to communicate. And even the younger children, especially when we're able to go back into the physical classroom, we need to observe the way by which they're playing. Play therapy is going to be really fundamental in how the children are playing with the toys and how they're playing with each other. It enables us to identify some of the trauma that have taken place. So those are the things we need to look at in terms of how they're playing either in the classroom or how they're playing outside, during story time, during Cappy time. Those are the things we need to look at. With the older children or older students, we need to look at what they're not saying. What they are not saying. Because we might say, oh, well, this child is quiet, but is the child really quiet, or is there something this child is masking? We need to be really mindful of what we are looking at And as educators, we need to be really on the ball to identify the children who we would perceive as being quiet.
Yes.
Because that's a very dangerous element, because there could be a lot of mental issue going on there, which we just allow the child because we think, oh, the child is quiet. No, we need to actually start addressing that. That's the reason why I constantly say in my sessions that when we go back to either the physical classroom or the hybrid setup, or we go back online, we need to start looking at those things. Or else we would end up having a group of students who have major mental health issues.
Definitely.
Because it is much bigger than we are actually choosing to acknowledge or embrace. Because I would rather have a child that is not intellectually progressive. I would prefer a child that have been dealt with emotionally and psychologically. Because the intellectual can come after. The psychological and the emotional effect and impact need to be readily addressed. And I'm afraid as educators and therapists and counselors, that would be the responsibility, I'm afraid, for educators. So we now would be taking on different roles, because as we know, in schools and other educational establishments, there are not enough of therapists and psychologists and counselors to go around. So our roles would be automatically into those areas. Whether or not we want to take it on board or not, it would automatically happen. Because
go ahead.
Because as we know, when you are a main grade lecturer, teacher, whatever, you're not even a counselor, but the students are coming to you and say, oh, miss, I'm pregnant. What can I do? And you're thinking, heck, you know, you're supposed to be doing your schoolwork, but you got pregnant. So therefore, you automatically thinking, okay, who could I get the students to talk to? And the student is deciding that I don't want to talk to any counselor. I want to talk to you.
You're right.
There you have it.
No, you're right. And also, you know, coming back, you know, to, I presume that the counselors and psychologists are going to be dealing with the most overt behaviors, right?
Exactly.
The ones that are in your face. But what about also too, I think you're right, we are all tasked with looking out for the quiet child. What are they not saying, you know?
Exactly.
I think there's a tendency for those children to fall through the cracks even more, because you're dealing with the fires. You know, I think all of us, you know, can benefit for some healing, because we're all putting out fires in our own little corners of the world constantly.
Yeah, exactly. So whether or not, you know, educators are saying, well, I am not a counselor. I'm hearing you're not a counselor, but you know something. You've been doing counseling jobs, psychologist jobs, therapist jobs from the time you step into the classroom.
Definitely.
So we might as well just embrace it and say, okay, I know that I'm not trained, but that is it, because the students are coming to you anyway. Because there's sometimes when you go into the classroom, before you actually address your subject, the students are all coming to you because they've got so many baggages that need unpacking before you actually start teaching.
Exactly. Teachers are great investigators.
They are. And sadly that, you know, the acknowledgement and the appreciation is not always there, because everybody feels that they could be or they are a teacher. No, you're not a teacher. Because you've helped your child to ride his or her bike, or because you actually have helped your child to tie the shoelaces, I understand and I appreciate all of that. However, you are not a teacher. Teaching involves a lot more than you're seeing.
Yes, they have to navigate, you know, what's going on the playground, in the classroom, who said what to who.
Exactly. So they have to be the mediator as well, eh?
Exactly. Always a mediator.
You know, and I suppose the interesting thing with this COVID, a lot of parents who used to think that they were teachers lay teachers. I'm sure they're now realizing, no, I am not a teacher. I'm a parent here. Because this COVID have actually made a lot of them start thinking about what they say in relationship to, yes, I'm a teacher. Teachers' jobs are easy. I'm sure they're beginning to rephrase that now. But as we know, the human mind is very selective and very temporary. So, as much as they're actually praising the teachers and how much they appreciate the teachers, blah, la, 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 that's just now. When we go back in September and little Johnny is not doing as how he should be doing, we are going to come under the hammer again.
I think, I hope that there is continued collaboration and that on both sides, because I know so many parents who they want to know, they're hungry and they're thirsty for that interaction and guidance as to how to, because parents have also been pushed into a job of parenting and educating, and just like we are pushed into this job of educating and parenting, I usually do my education separate than my parenting, and wow, having those two worlds collide has been so interesting. It's been real. But I just think so much of our parents, they just need, love and support, and and that goes, for educators who are parents too, and educators who are not. It's just everybody just needs that love and support. And parents, this is not, being a first grade, second grade, third grade teacher or high school teacher is not their forte. And you have to make a living, and or cook dinner.
Exactly.
So I just think that continually collaborating, keeping the lines of communication open, even if I don't know what's going on myself. The computer system is down. What do you need from me? For the most part, they just want to be informed, and just appreciate it. I think appreciation is a two-way street. I know that educators, we feel like, we're underappreciated, but I really feel like, parents at this time too probably feel really underappreciated as well, because they've had to really, synthesize a lot of information. Some parents with multiple kids, some parents with different needs at home, some parents, not having a significant other there for whatever reason. So it's been a lot, some parents having a different setup, where they can tag team, so that reciprocity, I think respect and communication, both ways, and non-judgment. Like, we really just no judgment, at this point.
Exactly.
Just like, as hard as that may be, like, we don't know what it's like for that parent at this time, don't know what was going on, what is going on. And it's so important, for us just to be open, to be present. And just help them through it, and that may not look like what we want it to look like. But, in terms of, like, here's my lesson, we're educators. So we have a lesson, we have a plan, we have a goal, we have little check boxes, but it's just being kind to ourselves.
That's important. That is so important. Being kind to self and self-care. That is so very important.
Just reaching out and connecting to our parents, because I mean, not a lot of them wanted to talk, but they needed to talk. And some were just honest. Like, can we wrap this up? Like, and because for if the child didn't have certain things and they wanted certain things, like, yeah, why not? Come back in a week, and it's not of detriment, if it's not detrimental, and even if it is, work with the parent, just work with the parent, to be open and understanding and having empathy.
Yeah, I think that is so important. You know, it'll be lovely that when we go back in September, you know, I would love to say that I have 90% of my parents connected. It would be fantastic. It would be so fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, it would be really good because, you know, you're demonstrating that, you know, the parents is there, you're actually doing the connection, you know, the relationship. You know, it's just lovely. It would be lovely, but it's a matter of we just have to wait and see what happens.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Natalie, for coming onto the platform to share your experience of the online teaching, which is very different from, you know, we all have very different experiences. So it's really lovely to share that and, you know, take in various areas from what you share and how we could actually use into our physical classroom when we get back, because we all have brought things on this online platform. One thing that we've all brought is we all become even more aware of how much we have to plan on this platform, because our old plan on the physical classroom is a no-no for the online platform. We've all learned that to our detriment.
Lots of unknown variables on both sides.
Exactly. Thank you very much, everybody on my platform, for tuning in, for listening to the replay. And I do appreciate you actually commenting. Please continue to comment, continue to ask questions, which I'm going to look at later on. Please continue to share it. Please continue to like it. And yes, I am still looking for more female educators. I've got quite a lot of them, but I'm still looking for more female educators. There are two criteria. Yes, you have to be female. And yes, you have to have taught online, whether or not it's a 1 week, it's a 2 weeks, it doesn't matter how long you've taught online, but the criteria is you should have taught online so we could actually see somebody here, somebody experience that you've actually have gone through and how you've negotiated the experience, you know, some of the challenges. And of course, you've actually swum across it. And I really want to thank educators for having to learn this new normal setup in terms of the excessive planning, because it's a new thing for us. The planning is very different. The way we actually have the lessons are very different. We didn't know what we were doing, you know, and the good thing is we actually came out. It is better for us to come out and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do it. I wasn't taught in, you know, in training school how to do that. That's the real situation. So it is so much better to be transparent, because we don't have all the answers. I'm the first one to say I am not technical, although I used to teach IT, so that's a big joke in itself. But I'm not technical, and I have had a lot of challenges, but I've also had a lot of fun on the platform. So thank you guys very much, and I'll see you guys tomorrow at the normal time at 6 o'clock. Today, as I said, it's very unusual because my educator all the way from China, hence the reason. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a fantastic evening. And